Hey everybody, it is Friday and we are finishing out the week together. Today, what I want to kind of leave you with to just summarize this week, or at least the idea. I guess it's not really a summary. Is the blessing of humility, and it might seem strange, but I really feel like the virtue and the character of humility itself is one of the expected and hoped for results in the life of a believer from God. The tons of scriptures talk about God opposing the proud, but befriending or blessing the humble, those in humility, that kind of thing. But there's two things. There's two things up or two things. Wow. There's three texts that come to mind specifically from the New Testament that I want to share with you, and have you listen to these and think about how practicing humility, praying for humility, though don't do that lightly. Because God will help you learn it. But I do think that's a lesson worth learning, by the way. So don't be afraid or don't take the lazy route out. There's three texts, though. The first one is from Luke chapter 14. Let me pull that up right here. Luke chapter 14. And this is the story of Jesus going to a Pharisee's house, okay? So it picks up, I'm going to read starting in verse 1. It says, "One Sabbath when Jesus went to eat in the house of a prominent Pharisee, he was being carefully watched. There in front of him was a man suffering from abnormal swelling of his body. Jesus asked the Pharisees and experts in the law, 'Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not?' But they remained silent. So taking hold of the man, he," talking about Jesus, "healed him and sent him on his way. He then asked, 'If one of you has a child or an ox that falls into a well on the Sabbath day, will you not immediately pull it out?' And they had nothing to say." Verse 7. "When he noticed how the guests picked the places of honor at the table, he told them this parable. 'When someone invites you to a wedding feast, do not take the place of honor, for a person more distinguished than you may have been invited. If so, the host who invited both of you will come and say to you, give this person your seat. Then, humiliated, you will have to take the least important place. But when you are invited, take the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he will say to you, friend, move up to a better place. Then you will be honored in the presence of all the other guests. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted.' Then Jesus said to his host, when you give a luncheon or a dinner, do not invite your friends, your brothers or sisters, your relatives, or your rich neighbors. If you do, they may invite you back, and so you will be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed. Although they cannot repay you, you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." Now, I really like this story. It's not, to be truthful, it's not one that I think about often, but when I do, I really like it. And to be exact, like even more truthful and honest, I used to struggle a little bit with it because I felt like, wait a second, Jesus is telling you something that it's almost like April Fool's Day a few days ago. Like he's telling you one thing, but it's a test, and so you better not actually do what he says in this sense, because if you do, he's going to bait and switch you. But I want to take a step back here and relook at this text again, because with Jesus's point here, and we're going to look at this with two other ones as well here in a second. Jesus's point is not, hey, make everybody think well of you. It's not an ego. It's not a test to see. And this is how I used to think, how whenever we approach this text, or I would hear sometimes some people talk about it, or even I think in practicality, how sometimes how the church approaches it. It's easy to assume that if you do this, if you're like, I'm going to put myself here so they invite me up and everybody sees it, and it's like this big ego boost or pride driven thing. But what Jesus is talking about is, hey, this is a being told to multiple people. Okay. And so the idea there is, as you go and as you invite people, each of you is assuming the seat. And he says, okay, let me go back over here and let me pretend somebody's inviting each of you. Each of you on your own should take the posture of humility. It's kind of like what Paul kind of takes a little bit and stretches it a little bit more and applies it in a more general context. He says, don't think about yourself only, but consider others better than yourselves or higher than yourselves. And so the idea there is there's humility gives you it's not a false humility. So I'm not talking about treating yourself as dirt or a carpet or a doormat to be walked over. That's not humility. Humility understands the worth that you have in the eyes of God, but it also understands that in the story, the person who invited may have invited somebody else that has other accolades or something. And so in the story, and I'm not interpreting this yet, guys. So don't jump into anything that I'm not saying. But in the story, the idea of coming to a banquet, Jesus is saying when you go to this banquet, there might be somebody that that might have more credentials or has a better relationship or something like that with the host, and they're going to want them in the seat. So don't assume that you have the highest place. And so now to interpret that a little bit, I really think what Jesus is talking about is everybody should consider others higher than themselves. And so when you do that within his kingdom, humility has this way of not only valuing yourself, but valuing the other person. And guess what? That other person is not only valuing themselves, but is valuing you as well. And so now you have this mutual exchange, this humble mutual exchange of valuation, of worth, and considering each other worthy, and you have this similar level of connection, and this might be really confusing because I really wonder if we've done a disservice of talking about humility. I know not necessarily any teachers that I've had in the past, not at all, but I think I have read and extrapolated other things and applied it here to where humility is something that I've had a hard time to process and grasp. And I would think that I should treat myself like the scum of the earth, and that was being humble. But the more and more I read and study and pray and seek God's wisdom and see where the Spirit's trying to transform me, the more I'm understanding and seeing and recognizing that that's not humility at all. So I'm not going to read this text, but another one's Philippians 2 and the example of Jesus. Like, he didn't consider himself worthless, but he considered others important to the point that he was willing to lay himself down to become human, like to become full God and full human, to be incarnate, and then also to die for these people. But not just die, but die the death of a criminal. So like there's multiple layers of humility being exampled there in Philippians chapter 2. So again, that's not one that I'm actually going to read. But the one I am going to read is from Ephesians chapter 4 and verses 2 and 3. And Paul writes, "Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace." Another text that comes to mind is 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 8 and 9. And Peter writes this: "Finally, all of you be like-minded." See if you notice or catch anything similar between this and the Ephesians text. "Be like-minded, be sympathetic, love one another, be compassionate and humble. Do not repay evil with evil or insult with insult. On the contrary, repay evil with blessing, because to this you were called, so that you may inherit a blessing." And so I really am drawn to consider and pray for and pray through the areas of my life that need and that already exhibit elements of humility, and to see and be ready to respond in obedience to where the Holy Spirit is asking me to surrender places, strongholds of pride that maybe the kingdoms of presumption have erected and have fortified, but also to build up maybe some other fortifications of Jesus's kingdom, where humility helps me knock down the kingdom of insecurity, where I have no worth, I have no value, and God clearly has said that that's not true, because he felt we were worth him to love, and that's just who he is. He loves us, and we have worth in his eyes, not because we earned anything, but just because he loves us. And so in the eye of the beholder, and the eye of the person who made the decision to act and to purchase and to redeem and to save, and what other language of atonement you want to use there, he determined that we were worth it to him to do what he did. So I want you to think about that for today. And then leaning into Saturday with this creating and sharing, I thought of this cool little creative outlet. And some of you may have done this before. Again, I am not a journaler, so this is not something that I'm excited in, like, selfishly. But it comes, I was thinking of Romans 12:2, and this idea of constantly being renewed, having our minds renewed. Not being conformed to the pattern of the world, but being transformed by the renewing of our mind, and partnering with the Spirit and allowing him to do things that only he can do, but also being obedient with the things that he asks us to do. And so this is the creative outlet that you can try, give or take. But it's I want you to take out like a sheet of paper and make 2 columns. It can be in your journal, a sheet of paper, whatever it is, but make 2 columns and put on one side lies I believe, and on the other column, put truth from God. And I would love encourage you. I would love to encourage you to maybe think through thoughts of that are present in your life that are reflective of the kingdom of insecurity, or that are reflective of the kingdom of presumption. So like, be honest about like any doubts or fears or assumptions that you've made about yourself or about others. Write those down in the column of lies I believe, and then jump into the Bible. You can use websites or concordances as well to just look up different scriptures that speak truth to each one of those. So like, for example, like basically I want you to put the things that you believe that are signify influenced by the kingdoms of presumption and insecurity. And then on the other side, I want you to like put down what God says about identity and trust and humility. And because the idea is we're going to replace we want to replace the things that that our flesh and the influences of these kingdoms, how they tempt us to move away from God and into ourselves or into other things. We want to replace those with the truth of God. And so we put the lies on one side, the truth of God, the scriptures on the other side. And then I want you to turn that truth into a prayer. Maybe like read that passage out loud and ask the Holy Spirit to rewire, transform, renew your mind so that this is louder than what you wrote on the lie side. So, for example, maybe it's with the kingdom of insecurity. The lie you write down is, I am not good enough. I am not worth God's love, or anything like that. And so on the other side, you might write Ephesians 2:10. I am God's handiwork, or God's masterpiece, created to do the things he prepared in advance. To do good works, that kind of thing. And then the declaration or that prayer is Holy Spirit, help me know that that the Father truly loves me, that he has called me into his kingdom, and as such I have a purpose to walk in step with you and become more like Jesus. Something like that. I'm not telling you to write that down or memorize that and just do that word for word. Sorry, I had to move the microphone there. But that's just an example of something you can do. And so that's what I would love to leave you with for today and for this weekend. And this Sunday, we are doing our big gathering in the afternoon. And I hope, I know it's a weird time this time, and so I'm sorry about that. But I do think the cool thing about what God is doing, is that there's there's a flexibility there, and as we continue to multiply house communities and cells around the metro, there's going to be other times that we might end up doing different things. And so this is just the first time. I know this is taking longer, so I'm sorry. I'm just sharing from my heart for a moment before I sign off for this week. I was just talking with Emily and with I think it was, I don't remember who it was actually. This is sad. I guess I'm tired. I was talking with Emily and somebody else, and I was just saying, man, it feels like we've been at this for a lot longer than we have. Like the past year and a half, past 2 years have been short, so quick at times, but extremely long at other times. And so it's really tempting for me to feel like, man, we are moving slow, or we're not doing this, or we're moving too fast. We don't have this figured out. And to be reassured of the fact that this is the first month that we have replanted and doing this, and things take time. Trust and walking with God and walking in step with the Spirit takes time, takes faithfulness, and takes perseverance. That's what this whole series of Beyond the Wilderness builds on. And so that is just a little, I guess, testimony or what's going on with me with that too. So I hope to see you Sunday. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to message somebody from DC or to message me. That's totally fine too. And until then, take care. Have a good weekend.